agenda? Okay, seeing none, we can move on to item 3A, which is to discuss our voting wards maps.
I can bring us up to speed of where we're at right now. The objective is to have council at its work and voting session next week agree to a revised voting ward map so we can get it implemented in time for the 24 primary. And we talked about two possibilities. One, Bill is showing on this map, it came out of an algorithm that Nick ran, balancing ward populations as best it can. And there was another option where we looked at the existing wards and just changing one of the census blocks in the North Campus location between Campus Drive and Sharpless Avenue, right? It's an avenue. Or is it a road? I can't remember. Anyway, we talked about that at last month's meeting, and council did not want to move forward with making a decision because one of the council members whose wards would be affected by that wasn't present. So we discussed it with that council person. We discussed a little bit offline with the ACT committee about that other option. That's not the one we're looking at right here. But the other option would just be moving a 900, it's actually 4 pages down on this one, Bill. One more. There you go. It's basically this map, which is the existing wards transferring the highlighted census block into ward number 5, which would make wards number 5's population quite large, but 3,600 of that population would be students, and ward 3's population would decrease by that number there, which I believe is 900 more or less. So this was something council talked about as the least change option. And our wards 3 and 5 would be out of balance with regard to population should council choose this one. And on our other map that the computer generated, several of the ward boundaries, all but 2 of the ward boundaries would be out of the 10% population because there's really no way to balance the populations given the rule about the district justice lines. That's where we're at today.
So I think my biggest question should be could you answer like which plan gives Ward 5 the most residents that do not live on campus?
I understand the question. I don't know the answer.
Sure. Because yeah, that's something I'd be really interested to know, just because we want to be able to find good candidates in every ward. And I know that was our biggest concern going into this was the university super block, making sure we didn't have one ward that was all on campus. Are there any other questions we'd like to try to get to the bottom of today? From council?
No, I mean, I guess I'd like to hear from Sheila, who's most impacted by this. I mean, honestly, I could go either way. I think the less change is great, but on the other hand, it gives us 2 that are really out of whack.
Yeah, I believe we should hear from Councilwoman Vaquero about this. You know, I had a conversation with her about it. I believe that this map is a solid map based upon the constraints that we currently have.
Great, thank you. And I think it's always worth saying when we have this conversation for the record that it's all of this data comes from the 2020 census, which has its own issues because of COVID. But that aside, I think what we're saying, are there any public comments before we move forward? That aside, I think what would make sense is to just forward this on to next week without a recommendation and just see where Ms. Vaccaro is. Is that okay?
Sure. That works.
Great. Thanks for the update. Item 3B is to discuss NeoGov human resources software.
Good evening, everyone. John Krauser, HR Director. Just want to give you a very brief overview. We won't talk too much about numbers tonight. Just some of the research that we've been doing or that I've been doing over the last few months to address or at least to optimize some of the performance issues and improve functionality within the staff. One thing that's been lacking, or at least that it could use some improvement, is one, our structural direction as far as how the staff will is gauged on their performance year over year, as well as how we're hiring people, the amount of money that we're spending on our Indeed applications, also our payroll, and also creating a all-encompassing system that will go from the new applicant all the way to retirement, and creating something that's seamless, creating better communication for the entire borough, both the police department as well as all of the administrative departments, all in one system from beginning to end. So we've been doing research over various HR information systems. NeoGov happens to be one of those systems that has come up more often than most as a system of choice. The police department already has 2 of the modules that NeoGov actually runs in their scheduling system. So it does put it at the forefront of any other HR information system. And if you're a business owner with more than a few hundred people, or at least in a large organization, most large organizations do have an HR information system available. With the NeoGov system, there's a lot to be said for this. This would be potentially a replacement for both our current ADP system, as well as save us a tremendous amount of money on advertising, and take away from the budget that we had last year for Indeed and other recruiting and talent acquisition ads. Not only does it do that, it also provides us a lot of other modules that we currently do not have. Some of those being onboarding. Right now, our onboarding system is a paper and pen onboarding system. Everything that you do when you come into the HR office is done through paper and pencil. Their onboarding, if you scroll down just a little bit, Bill, their onboarding system provides a seamless transition from Insight, where the applicant is filling out their own information, making sure that it's all accurate. It comes over to Onboard, where information is already gathered and no paper is needed. So we're going into the digital format. Moving into Learn, which we actually would have to pay in other systems, we would have to pay separately for it. This is a fully functional LMS with over 2,400 different courses, such as your standard yearly courses, your sexual harassment classes, your EEO classes, inclusion courses, and also very job-specific courses such as OSHA, general safety, ergonomics, and a wide variety of different classes that would assist in creating a better environment for our employees and training them better from the beginning. It also leads into, if you scroll just a little bit further, we get into Perform, which is one of the main focuses that I have, is on that performance module. So most organizations have some form of performance evaluation, whether it be annual, semi-annual. Most companies, most businesses will do a 30, 60, 90 for their new employees to make sure that they're well engaged and that they're getting time with their manager, getting time with the leader that they report to on a regular basis. Perform would give us a standardization for that. It would actually give us an opportunity to provide every employee with structured goals that are set up in advance for that individual position, and then they're held accountable to those, and the leader is also held accountable for making sure that they're engaging those employees. So that's something that right now each department does a little bit differently from one department to the next. It's not saying that anyone is right or anyone is wrong, but this would standardize it and make it more structured, give us an opportunity to actually gauge everybody on an even playing field. So some of the other features that NeoGov offers are e-forms. So as I mentioned before, we want to go to a digital format over the paper and pencil that could potentially, get lost, misfiled, whatever the case may be, and provide electronic formats from the beginning. So your I-9 forms, if you're familiar with those from the very beginning, your WOTC, your EEO forms, things like that are all intertwined into the individual's digital employee file. So rather than having a file in a file cabinet that you put the paper in the wrong spot, it won't happen this way. Plus, we can go back and have history for years that will allow us to be able to see how that individual has performed, how they've trained, the learning modules that they've completed, the certificates that they've earned as they've been an employee of the borough. All of these really add up to a more engaged, better performing employee year over year. So I'm going to go to a second attachment in just a moment, but some of the other key features that I want to point out with NeoGov is that it is an all-inclusive payroll system as well. So it could easily replace ADP along with our recruiting system, which we currently use Indeed. So the one price tag I will give you, it was last year we ended up on Indeed. We spent just over $28,000 just on Indeed pricing alone. Okay, so when we do get final numbers for the HRIS system that we want to present, that will factor into those numbers, as well as the cost of ADP and the cost that I'm going to show you now. If you go over to the second example. So basic turnover cost. What I've done here is anybody who's in any organization knows that everybody that you lose has a cost to it. So in this example, what I've used is a parking enforcement officer and the parking director and myself as the three individuals that really run these numbers. Is if it's a more higher salaried employee, then those numbers obviously would go up. If it's a lower hourly paid employee, then those numbers might go down a little bit. But our hard cost overall run about $17,600. But if you go down to some of the soft costs, thank you. Some of those softer costs, the vacancy, depending on how long a job is left vacant, it can come out to be 25, 26, or even higher per turnover. So far this year, we've been very fortunate. We've only had 11 turnovers overall. But if you do these numbers times 11, that's a pretty expensive venture. So the reason I bring up this information is that every turnover that we can save, every employee that we can be more engaged with and give them better training and facilitate a better environment for, is one less turnover that we have. And they're retaining knowledge, they're being better engaged by every level of management, and it is structured to a point that everybody on a 360-degree view is being evaluated from a leadership perspective, as well as the leader being evaluated by the employee. So this creates an opportunity for us to advance as an organization and to retain our people at a cost savings. Did want to ask if there was any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a few. So relative to the turnover, you do exit interviews. How many people of the 11 this year, for instance, do you think would have, had it been a training, regular performance reviews done consistently, do you think that would have potentially saved?
If I am being modest, and based on the exit interviews that I've received, out of those 11, at least 3 to 4 would have stuck around.
The second question is, so how are you doing it now in terms of keeping track of performance reviews and all those things, Excel spreadsheets? Or is there something similar to this, or is it all literally on paper?
All pen and paper, because I've actually only been here a little over 6 months. Assessing where we are, it was one of the first things that I did, and I discovered very quickly that it was an antiquated system of either pen and paper or Excel spreadsheets that hadn't been used for a few years or really hadn't been used at all. So this briefing is really out of necessitas for change and to evolve into that digital age, to begin tracking turnover, exit interviews the way that they should be tracked.
Okay, one last question, the Indeed versus the NeoGov.
Mhm.
So does NeoGov have their own,
Applicant tracking.
well, it's tracking, candidates, but will you still need to advertise on Indeed? I mean, what part of Indeed are we saving by going to this, I guess is the question.
We would actually be saving considerably. NeoGov actually owns the website governmentjobs.com. So government jobs will scrape from other websites. So anybody who applies for a job that's similar to or related to a government position, they scrape those sites and draw them into government jobs. So we also can add that link to our website directly, so that when an employee comes in or an applicant comes in to request a job that we have open on our site, it will immediately take them to governmentjobs.com, and that will then send all of the applicant's information, if they're selected, over to the next stage to Insight, and then we'll continue to grow informationally as they become a new employee and begin receiving performance evals.
Thank you.
How much does the NeoGov program cost?
So the current numbers we are looking at, and these are not final numbers, these are preliminary. And we are looking at again, potential for others. Cost in year 2, without setup, it's just over 70,000 for year 2. Year 1 with setup, it's 44 for year 1 with a $71,000 total setup. And then in year 3, it's at 99,000. That's the current number. At
200,000.
285 in grand total. Yeah, 200 for those initial 3 years. Correct. Yep. Now to fully answer your question, as I had mentioned before, we would be replacing 2 existing systems that we have currently, instead of using Indeed, which last year cost us over $28,000, and then ADP, which at current estimate, I believe, is around 70,000. We did reach out to ADP, who is our current payroll vendor, and they indicated that in order to do the same thing that NeoGov would do for us, they would need 9 months to build it, and it would cost double what they're currently charging us per year.
Which is what? ADP?
ADP right now is 70,000 a year, rough. We're budgeted right around 70,000. And so the indication, I believe Barb had spoken to ADP last week, and they said that at a minimum, it would be double the current price tag, which far exceeds what NeoGov can give us, plus all of the additional items that ADP would have to build from scratch.
What about Workday?
We have begun looking into Workday. I need to get a demo done through them to see what their price tag is they wouldn't give me a price initially. So I can do a demo, have a demo done with them to see where they would land total price tag and if they can do what we can. One of the reasons that we stuck with NeoGov to begin with is because it's already integrated into or two of the systems that the police department uses are already NeoGov owned systems. So their scheduler and their timesheets are all done through NeoGov.
After year 3, how much would we have to pay in NeoGov?
I'm sorry, repeat.
After year 3, how much would we have to pay?
It would only be a 3-year contract, so it would be 99 continuation. If we chose to continue, it'd be 99,000 a year. So just call it an even 100, if you will.
And with that, I mean, how much are we paying? Well, we were not doing anything now, but with Indeed, it would be 28,000. If we did update the other system, that would be 70,000. So that would be 100,000
Mhm.
still, but we wouldn't need that additional 200,000. So you see where I'm getting at with the cost here,
Well, the 200,000 would be,
the setup for year 1 and 2.
no, I'm sorry if I misspoke. I apologize. No, the total for the full 3 years is around 285 in for everything total. And that's current price. We're actually trying to trying to see if we can shave some off of that price tag. But right now it's sitting around 285 for a total 3-year setup, fees, everything.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, I just wanted to know what your ideal timeline would be for this. Is this something you're looking to get on the budget for 2024 or sooner?
So timeline on it, they would need 90 days to train, and then to evaluate, review any get any bugs worked out, make sure that everybody that's currently on the staff is fully trained and all of the information from ADP, who is housing most of our HRIS type of material, is all of that data is extrapolated and transitioned over successfully.
Did I hear it correctly? Our current price estimate for what we're paying for ADP right now was $70K a year.
Right around 70 a year. Yep.
And then just like functionally, I know this would change your job immensely. I'm sure it would make it a lot easier and let you do a lot more, which would be great. How about for like other department heads who are like tracking like the performance of their employees? Like, is this something that could potentially bind them up in more work, or do you see it making their lives easier day to day?
Well, the hope is, and actually not even the hope, the plan is actually to ease the leadership's administrative burden by creating a system or utilizing a system that automatically tells the leader that an engagement is due. So they don't have to think about it as much. Our leaders should be engaging their employees on a regular basis, no matter what. That's just regular common sense leadership. But having something that tells you, that reminds you, hey, you need to sit down and have a one-on-one with your employee, or you need to tell them how their performance is going and things that they need to improve upon. That engagement is priceless when it comes to anything that a leader is doing for their employees in order to retain them. So when they're doing their 30, 60, 90, that's something that the leader should be doing anyway, regardless if the system is there or not. But as we all know, we get into the daily grind of doing the job that we have to do, and not every leader is as cognizant of engaging their employees. It becomes just the daily grind for both the employee and the leader. So this is a way to remind them that they do need to engage, that they do need to review their employees' performance, and that they need to be held to a standard, both the employee and the manager.
Great, thank you. And then what about like day-to-day life for employees who are working under department heads? Like, what does that look like for them with the new system?
As far as what they would see just from the performance evaluation side, or can you?
Yeah, I just as a teacher, like we have similar things. And right now, there's a lot of different ways that we're being like checked in on, which is good, but it's very stratified right now.
Mhm.
And it does end up being like something that can kind of crowd my to-do list some weeks, depending on, where we are in the rhythm of the year.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to make sure that this wouldn't like bog down our employees too much.
And I can understand where that potentially could, if you're the type of, what we can do is schedule it to meet the needs of the employees. So if you're looking at it from an individual contributor perspective, the engagement from their manager, that's one aspect of it. But having opportunities to learn, do learning modules, to gain new experiences, to be challenged and have an opportunity to speak to your manager about, how do I move up vertically, or what other tasks can you assign me, or how do I grow as an employee here? Those are conversations that are paramount to most employee success. And especially in today's tumultuous age where they're going from one job to another, even though, yes, it can definitely build up. It can add to your calendar if you let it. It can also give a employee who is actually happy at their job, or maybe one who's not fully satisfied but would like to find new ways to a- achieve new heights, as an employee. This gives them that opportunity to do so in a positive way. So that's the short end of it.
Cool, thank you.
Yep.
So is this something we're looking to move to council next week, or what's our timeline here?
This is just for discussion purposes. We'll probably come back in the context of the budget season with more on this.
Okay, cool. That makes
Yeah.
sense. All right, that information is extremely helpful. So thanks for getting it on our radar.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions?
Yeah, just one last question. It might be helpful, moving forward to, either dismiss or perhaps include others like, Workday or Paylocity or something.
Mhm.
It sounds like this may be the right one, but
Absolutely. And when we are at the, as I mentioned, when we first started, wasn't going to talk too much about the numbers. But we do want to get together comparables so that, the comparables that we've looked at so far, like UltiPro, which is a fully immersed HRIS as well, literally cost double what this one does. So it's not necessarily worth it to bring it to the table unless it's a legitimate comparable. Many of the other HRIS that I've looked at, have not compared functionally to everything that NeoGov can do. They're also not set up to handle, local government or municipality the way that we're designed, the way NeoGov can. So when we do talk about this in the coming months, there will be full comparables. And Workday, thank you for mentioning that. I will definitely make sure that that's one of the comps.
thank you.
Thank you.
And moving on to our action items, we just have to approve our minutes from last month, which are fine by me.
Approved.
Approved.
All righty, we'll call that one 3-0. Is there any other business tonight? All righty, seeing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn at 5:59. Thank you.